Well, hello there. You're tuning into the uncut, uncensored version of my history lesson where I break it down and keep it simple. So, you want to know about imperialism? I go to dictionary.com and the definition is the policy of extending an empire's authority over foreign countries. Fortunately, a coworker of mine says there's an easier way to define it. Imperialism is just simply the act of building an empire. And I'm like, how did you get that? He says, look at the word imperial. Don't you see the word empire in there? Maybe you have to tilt your head a little bit. But ism is the suffix for the act of. So the act of building an empire. But then I wanted to know what an empire was. Is the empire like the carpet company? 588 Empire. Okay, maybe I'm a little dated. But is it a castle? Is it a kingdom? What is an empire? And an empire, according to dictionary.com, is a group of nations or people ruled over by one powerful being, like a king or an emperor. So, going back here to the picture, you see a nice little cartoon that says everything the light touches is our kingdom. And then here you have a British Empire map where Great Britain is ruling over the group of land you see in this map. Okay, well, is an empire an idea like voodoo where you cast a spell and they're under your influence? Or is it something that I can actually see, like a building? Here in this picture, you see Julius Caesar ruling his empire, full of soldiers, his people in his kingdom. And then I wondered, who was the first person who came up with this idea of building an empire? And apparently, empire building has been an old idea dating back to the 1st century, maybe even long before that, where the Roman Empire, we just talked about Julius Caesar, he ruled this area and he wanted to feel mighty and he went to war and I guess he expanded his territory. And so now this here is his empire. But even in Africa, we have kingdoms of African tribes. So I'm assuming that's an empire. But how do you control a land? How do you control an area? How do you control people? Well, you can go back to the warrior days where you just barge into somebody's territory and fight for it. Or you can negotiate a deal with somebody and maybe you become shady like this guy, which a lot of Europeans back in the day were. Europeans went into some foreign land, striked up a agreement with the natives, had them sign the treaties to give up their land, and they're like, okay, because the treaties were basically written in a language that they didn't understand. And then you can also control land by having the original imperialists, I guess, give up that land. For example, in war, if you lost the war and you have to pay, you didn't have enough money, you say, hey, I have this piece of land, you can have it. So those are a couple of ways in which you can control new territories. Fight for it, make treaties, make agreements, or lose it in a war treaty, I guess. So what I wanted to know was, does imperialism exist today? And according to Ask.com, yes, I know it's not the most reliable, but Ask.com says, sure, imperialism does exist today, but in a different form. Several nations would want to expand their influences in other countries. Well, I have to ask myself, do we still have a situation where one country wants to put their influence on another country, whether it be political or economical? So, for example, if America is into this whole idea of democracy and they see another country, say China, is ruled by communism and they think it's bad, do we go over there and try to convince the Chinese people of our system of government? If you said yes, then that is one form of political imperialism. Or do we have a situation where you have an American business going over to another country to cut a deal that would be favorable for us, like Starbucks going over to another country, or McDonald's? If you're saying yes, then that's a form of economic imperialism. So here we see that my native country, Vietnam, is going to have a few McDonald's built. And I don't know if you know anything about Asian people, but in Vietnam, we eat rice. We don't eat burgers. So the fact that American corporations are making business to benefit them in Vietnam shows a form of economic influence. Final words to summarize this tutorial. Imperialism is the act of building and also maintaining the empire. Because if you get a territory and you don't take care of it or its people, they can protest, and they definitely could be vulnerable to wars from other countries. So you really want to make sure that you're protecting your investment. Empire can refer to the size of your kingdom or the extent of your influences in other countries. Do you have connections in other country? That is your extent of influences. You can gain your influences by either defeating your opponent and making your opponent follow your orders, negotiating treaties, or forming partnership with foreign countries. And then you would ultimately benefit from having more territories and more partnerships. It is meant to benefit you. When I think of this whole imperialism and empire ordeal, I think about the game Monopoly, where basically the property you own allows you to make more money. And the more property you own, the higher your power of negotiation could be. So you can buy and sell and trade when you have property. But if you don't have property, you pretty much can't do anything. Well, that's it for me. In my other videos, we'll get into the causes of imperialism and aftermath of imperialism. Toodaloo.